Obviously, throughout the United States, COVID is a major and growing problem, but it is not growing at the same rates everywhere, not even when you just focus on a few of the biggest states. So here we want to talk about California, Texas, and Florida, 3 states that have each at different periods had horrendous increases in COVID cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. But so far, at least, that is not really the case. Not all 3 are being hit in the same way during this most recent Delta variant fueled surge. California is reporting 141.1 new coronavirus cases for every 100,000 residents over the past week, a rate half that of Texas at 297.8, and less than 1/4 of Florida, which is above 650 cases per 100,000. California's rate is also less than the national average, by the way, of 232, despite being a city with some very large packed, a state with some very large packed cities, travelers, tourism, and all of that. So let's focus on where it's going wrong. The flood of COVID-19 patients newly admitted to Florida hospitals is now far worse than at any point during its winter surge, the so-called dark winter. Well, we got a dark summer for you. In January, Florida was reporting more than 1,150 new COVID patients every day, but now it's over 2,071 hospital admissions. And when you take a look at these 3 states, when it comes to daily admissions to hospitals, there's a big gap between them. With California below 2 per 100,000, a little bit more than twice as many as Florida, but in Texas, Florida is at 5 times the rate. And Texas is doing much better in that metric, but overall, if you look at their cases, let's bring up the Texas cases. It is getting back up into where it was at in November leading into December, despite the fact that we've had a vaccine now for more than 6 months. So we're gonna get into some of the potential explanations, but Ben, what do you make of how different the situation is in these 3 different sort of spots across the United States?
I am gonna go out on a limb here. I know it's a very radical limb, but I'm gonna go ahead and say that the prevalence of anti-mask, anti-vax Republicans is probably playing a significant role in what's going on in Florida and Texas. It's almost like, I know. Very, very wild take, out on a limb. It's almost like the vaccine reduces the rate of infection and the spread, and it's almost like the masks also reduce the rate of infection and spread. I mean, I might just have a master's degree in biosecurity and biodefense, but that's my wild guess, very uneducated, simple guess.
Well, look, if I've learned anything from following the media for the past 10 years, it's that the more someone knows, the less you should trust them. I don't trust those people with book learning or any other kind of learning. So let's look at the evidence and see if you might be right. Well, first of all, we're gonna look at a couple different explanations. One is vaccination rate. So my gut would say that California probably is more vaccinated than Texas or Florida. So let's look at the rates. California, the fully vaxxed rate is at 63%. 77.5% have received at least 1 shot. So Florida is less vaxxed, although perhaps not as big of a gap as you might think. 6 points less in fully vaccinated. It's looking like closer to 8 points in partially vaccinated. Texas, which is doing better than Florida in some metrics, is again less vaxxed than even Florida at 53.7% fully vaxxed, 64.3% partially vaxxed. So there are gaps, certainly. They're not massive gaps. And so that's when you get into the other measures, other than just vaccination. California has urged all residents, even those who are fully vaccinated, to wear masks indoors while in public, and is requiring them in K-12 schools. The governors of Texas and Florida, on the other hand, have largely banned schools and municipal governors from instituting such mandates, though some local leaders have defied those orders. So it turns out that your wild gamble of a guess, Ben, probably is true. Not only have they not done what California has done, which is mandating it, they are banning local governments from banning it. Isn't that crazy? Now, like, that seems to be maybe falling apart in Texas. There's some court stuff going on right now, and a couple different areas, both in Dallas and down in the Rio Grande Valley, are starting to fight back against that. But it almost seemed as if they were like taking the side of COVID once again, wanting to make sure that it gets its claws in as deep as it can.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so the most important thing that people understand when it comes to pandemics and vaccines and the mask wearing is that it is a probability game, right? It is literally a probability game, and there's whole fancy mathematical models that they do to like do this. They do a lot of agent-based modeling, if you know what that is. It's really fun. But basically, the most important number is, what are the chances that a person who is spreading coronavirus bumps into somebody who is susceptible to the coronavirus, right? And susceptibility has its own percent chance. And so vaccinations and masks are both numbers to reduce that. And even like a 10% difference in vaccination rates can lead to wildly different rates in the amount of spread, because there's a lot of non-linear scaling in terms of vaccines, mask wearing, and the actual spread of coronavirus.
You're starting to sound like Dr. Fauci, and it's making me very angry, actually. But no, that's why we're glad we have you with your expertise. And you're obviously totally right, and we're seeing that play out in cases and hospitalizations and deaths, which, like, every time I post about COVID, I get at least one or two lizard brains who will respond with, yeah, what about the deaths? And I'll point out that they've like doubled in the past 2 weeks, and it's absolutely dreadful to be losing 500 or 600 people per day. But then I also know, like, were these people taking COVID seriously when 3,000 people were dying per day? I doubt it. I don't think that they actually care. It's just a talking point. And so, look, there is still potentially time in Texas and Florida to start to take this more seriously. Not even to mention, Missouri, Mississippi, places that are really hard hit. There is time. You change the behavior, you will change the outcome when it comes to the coronavirus. We are still relatively early on in this wave. Some of the eventual deaths are probably baked in, because there's a gap, an average of, I believe, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, like close to 30 days between someone becoming infected and when generally they die of the coronavirus, if they're going to die. But I don't see huge behavior changes in these states. And when I say behavior changes, I don't mean, reports in Florida of refrigerated trucks being ordered so they can store more bodies, or, really local level things. Like here, you can see in Mississippi, Nick Judd posted, they're setting up once again a concrete garage overflow center for storing patients, which we saw, at the height of the pandemic last year. So I don't know. Ben, prediction time, I guess. Do you think that Florida and Texas are going to take it more seriously if the cases continue to go up the way that they are?
I don't think so. I mean, like, honestly, like, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is basically what the Republican Party is gonna do. They're just gonna say, just deal with it. Just get over it, just accept it. I mean, especially in terms of like our for-profit healthcare system. I mean, there were hospitals that literally shut down last year because it wasn't profitable to treat COVID patients. It wasn't profitable enough, right? They weren't doing enough like surgeries and whatnot. And so like that's our system, right? That's our system, shutting down hospitals in the middle of a pandemic because their magic line didn't go up. I don't think I might just be doomering out, but I don't think they're gonna change what they're doing.
Yeah, I've become increasingly pessimistic throughout this pandemic. We will see. We will see. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.